Bajli, thank you so much for coming along today to BritAsia. We have had some questions come in that we would like your answers to. So I've got a list here. We're just going to have a general chit chat and hopefully get some of these answered for our viewers. So we'll start with the first question around spirituality and religion. Are they the same thing or are they two different things?
So religion is often interpreted as being something that is based on just having very fixed beliefs. But if we go deeper into what religion is, the essence of it is to seek and to know that divine where we have all come from. But sometimes that message gets missed. So spirituality is to long and seek to know our essence, where we have all come from. So if we capture that essence from the religion, then in essence it's the same.
Do I have to follow the religion that I was born into?
So often, if we look at generally how karma and energy works, there'll be a reason to why we are born in a certain place, and even to that faith the family follows, there'll be something that has brought us to that space, to that place. So it would be generally easier in the sense of where your energy will be able to meet with the faith that you are born into. So to definitely, I would say, to look into your faith deeper. And sometimes we've often got a certain perspective or interpretation of what our faith is about. But I would say take that time to get to know your faith for yourself,
okay,
and then take it from there.
But if you're born into a certain religion, like you said, if your family, but if you then take a step and try a different religion and you think this isn't for me, is that a bad thing?
So I wouldn't class it as a bad thing. Again, you've got to look at why you are looking for a religion in the first place. And it's often, there's people that look for and seek for a religion when they are going through a difficult period, or somebody is going through pain or suffering, and that could be the reason why somebody's searching, or somebody just becomes curious. But I would say what we've got to be careful of is if people are trying to convince us of a religion and we're getting sucked into that instead of it being an actual conscious choice where you are actually seeking that religion for yourself.
If we're saying that there's a God, why do bad things still happen?
A way of looking at this entire creation. Creation can only exist if there are opposites. So we've got dark and then we've got light, but we can only appreciate the light because there is dark. Why is there a need of compassion? Because there is suffering. Otherwise, there's no need of compassion. Compassion only exists due to somebody suffering. So this whole creation has been made as that play of having both that contrast of life. So hence, with that free will, that people then choose how to live. And out of that living choices that people make, there'll be certain consequences. And you get to learn through those consequences that whether is this path, is this way of living serving you or not? God is allowing people to live in a certain way. And you could perceive that to be like a play. In that sense, there's a choice of what path to choose. And it's about finding your way in this play.
We talk about religion and we talk about, most religions say that you have to pray. If you do not pray, does that make you a bad person?
So again, taking that term, a bad person, and then looking at what does it even mean to pray. So I feel like when we use the word prayer, that means a request, a conversation because you are humbling yourself that there's a divine presence, there's an intelligence that's at play here within this creation. And you could look at prayer to help you to set your own intentions in life in the direction you would like to go. Yeah. So prayer can really help strengthen somebody. It can provide people with a lot of faith. So it's about you looking at, even in a practical sense, what is prayer and what does it do for me? Yeah. There's a lot of talk about manifestation or law of attraction, but prayer can be something similar where you're creating this communication and a relationship with this higher being, with God, what people refer to, and that can help you to live a certain way and set these positive intentions for your life, and for you to have some direction in life.
What if I can't pray because I find it difficult to recite it, if I'm listening to it rather than actually...
So if you look at what prayer actually is, so what you're referring to is reciting scriptures, whether that be Gurbani, or for somebody it might be the Quran, or somebody it might be the Gita. So there's recitation of scriptures, but prayer is very personal. Prayer is a conversation. And I'm sure there's times where you found yourself speaking to a divine presence or to God. And when you're speaking to God, that is the true essence of a prayer. So when you're putting your hands together, or however you do it, but from your heart, you are requesting something and creating that conversation, that in essence is a prayer. But then what you're referring to is, reciting scriptures.
We're on BritAsia, so obviously we've got quite a young audience probably watching and listening to you. Do you think we make religion very serious, and that's something that's off-putting for, say, maybe the younger generation because it's something that they don't feel comfortable talking about? Do you think religion should be serious? Is it serious? Like, can we make it light-hearted to get more younger people involved?
Nowhere does it say, from my understanding, even if I look at the words and the wisdom of Guru Nanak says very clearly that walk on this path of the divine, of spirituality, but you don't have to lock yourself away, and you don't have to restrict yourself. You can still laugh, you can still be playful, you can still wear nice clothes, you can eat nice food, right? None of these things are restricted. But there's a little twist. And that twist is to do these things consciously, meaning just make sure what you are doing is clear and pure, meaning be conscious that your laughter isn't at the expense of looking down at somebody and laughing. But otherwise, laughter is an expression of life. Laughter is a part of living. One of the things I personally say when I go to do talks, even in Gurdwara, I pose the question and I actually ask the Sangat, the congregation, is it okay for you to laugh here? And some of them, they'll have confused faces. And I'm like, of course it is. Yeah. But we'll have moments where you might be more serious and feel this profound, deep connection inside. But there'll be moments where you cry. There'll be moments. The whole point of being human is that we're able to experience these expressions of life through laughter, through crying, through being playful. So these things are definitely not restricted. Okay,
that's good. That's good to know. We all have lots of worries in our daily lives, whether it's work, whether it's, in school, we've got exams, uni life, you name it, health issues. How can we get our mind to focus? Like, how can we meditate? How can we, when we go to a place of worship, how can we, actually get our mind to focus and meditate?
So if you look at the word meditation, meditation is an umbrella term. So it's very wide. And within that umbrella, there's many ways of how to find connection. And focusing is one thing that meditation can help people achieve. So you've got to find your way and what works for you. And sometimes doing something as simple as sitting down and bringing into your awareness a gift or a blessing that you have, that you've been given by that divine. And that might be the ability, let's just take, all right, let me see what I can think about for my life. That might be just the ability and the gift to be able to communicate with people in a certain way, to be able to speak to people and communicate with people. If I just bring that gift into my awareness and I can just sit with that and really think about what that does for me in my life and for other people, and allow that to go into a space of appreciation. So once I start to think about how I appreciate that gift, and from appreciation, it can turn into a state of thankfulness. And when you go into a space of thankfulness, you're then experiencing gratitude. And from gratitude, it can take you to a place of awe when you're just in this wow. Yeah. That can be a form of meditation. That in of itself is a form of remembering that divine and remembering that these are that divine's gifts. That can become a meditation for somebody, which will put them in a much better state of mind. There's studies to show that how this has a positive impact on the brain, and it will help you in your life. It will de-stress you because it will take you out of fight or flight mode, and it will bring you into a more balanced state. So that's actually one way to do it, which was just given viewers to crack on with. Maybe you can try it in your own life.
I think I need to.
Yeah.
I'll take some of these tips. Another question we've had is, I only drink with my friends at the weekend. Does that make me a bad person?
Again, I'm just going to take out the word bad and look at it as just, what is alcohol? Alcohol is something that alters our state of consciousness, and which can have an impact on our intellect in the way we look and perceive life. So certain people have personal beliefs and ethics and morals that they live by, and alcohol has just, everything has a consequence. So has alcohol. Alcohol has a consequence on the body and on the mind, which can then depart, which, Guru Amar Das talks about how it can alter our state of mind. So to something that we wouldn't possibly do or say in our normal general self, that it could cause us to do that. So the question isn't about, am I a bad person? The question is about, how are we choosing to live whilst we're using a certain substance that is having an impact on our intellect and thinking about life and how we're then seeing and perceiving life.
Okay. You seem like a positive person. You're giving me lots of good advice to our viewers as well. How can we remain positive? Like I said, everybody's got lots of daily stresses in their life. Like I said, whether it's career-wise, whether it's, studying, whether it's at home, whether it's with the relationships. Mm-hmm. People are obviously really struggling. How can we remain positive?
I think the first thing to do is not to assume that somebody's a positive person, because I definitely have my struggles and battles. And one of my struggles or battles, to make it more real for people, is that my mind tends to tell me how I'm not good enough, or that I could have done that better or whatever. But I battle the mind, and sometimes we've got to go on that battlefield.
How do you battle that mind?
Yeah, right. Yeah, so there's different various ways of battling that mind. Mm-hmm. First of all, like what we just covered before, and it's so huge if we are to just start thinking about life in the way of not that it should have been or it could have been. So if we get rid of language like that and we change that language to a language that is more real, to say, okay, whatever is. So what you're doing is you're accepting this present moment. And to do that, sometimes you just got to do a simple step, like take a breath and just bring into your actual being, into your breath, and just say that this very moment cannot be any other way than what it is. So once you come to a place of acceptance for this very moment, and your mind starts to shut off from it should have been, could have been, you become present, and then knowing that you, as a human being, have the ability to start thinking, or we could say rehearsing, of how would you like to be in this world? What type of person would you like to be? So if you're feeling negative, if you're feeling that things are falling apart, we don't realize how much ability and power that we have just from the way we start changing and altering the way we think. But once you come into that acceptance, you can then choose, start just thinking about, write it down. What type of person would you like to be and what would you like to achieve? So if it's that you want to be a more joyous person, think about what that joyous person would look like and start meditating on that. And naturally, the more you do that, the more you will start becoming that. So we've got to take out time to do these practices in our life that is going to help improve our lives.
Moving on to a topic that's a little bit more difficult to talk about, death. How can we cope with losing somebody close to us? Like how, like I said, we say there's God, and if there's God, only good things happen. But then when we lose a family member, especially close to, how can you cope with the loss of somebody?
Again, I'd always be careful with the language that I use. This is how I try and live. So again, I don't try and associate these words, good or bad, with birth or death, because birth and death are a natural part and cycle of life. So if I'm not going to associate a word like bad to birth, then I'm not going to associate the word bad to death as well. There's certain circumstances we could say that we could look at things that need improving in society, in the world, so certain things don't happen. But we can't associate the word bad to death, because it's a natural part of life that we all intuitively know is going to happen. It's inevitable. And that's why it's one of the first things in most faiths and religions. It's taught for us to say that the first step to take is coming to acceptance of this inevitability of something coming to an end or changing form, which we call death. So once we start training our mind in that way, but then your question was specifically to how do we cope with it? First of all, we've had such a relationship with somebody. There's so much energy that's gone into a relationship, and there's that closeness. Is allow yourself, first of all, to experience the emotions that come up. Don't fight them. Yeah. So if there's sadness that is coming up because of a relationship you had with somebody, don't deny that emotion. Don't be scared of that emotion. Don't run away from that emotion. Allow yourself to go through that process. Don't suppress that, because it will come up again later on. So if there's pain that's coming up from separation to something, then allow it to come up, sit with it. But know that it's not permanent, this emotion. At least it's not permanent at this level of intensity. Yeah? But it will keep coming back up if you're trying to avoid it. Yeah? So sit with it.
So what would you say happens, like life after death? Like, would we be reunited with somebody that we've lost, that we're close with? Do you think we would ever
I think
see
before
that?
we answer that part, can we be or would we be, right? If we see ourselves as this bundle of energy. So Guru Nanak's wisdom is that if you've burnt off all your karma, meaning that you've now all the effect and the impressions of your past doings, you've risen above that and you've gone beyond that and you've become conscious now, enlightened, like your cycle of coming and going has come to an end. So you can now emerge with that formless that we have all come from. And the analogy that is often used is that just like a drop of water goes and merges back into the ocean, and that in that way then there is no more birth or death or continuation or heaven or hell or another body or another form, that it's done and you've merged into that divine. But if your play, your game, you want to call it, hasn't come to an end yet, and you've still got active karma yet, energy, a life force based on your own desires and unfinished businesses, right? Then there'll be a continuation. And that continuation will be based on your level of vibration, whatever frequency that is. And that will then attract then another life form.
Moving on to relationships. So all my friends have relationships whilst at uni. In this day and age, you know, is it wrong to have those relationships before marriage?
So first of all, when somebody says this day and age, it's not really just this day and age people are in relationships, are they? It's been happening for centuries and centuries.
My parents were saying, you know, they only met when they got married. So my dad's like, I only saw your mum on the day when I married her. So I feel like, when I say this day and age, I just kind of mean, is it...
In the last 30 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, we want to look at that. So obviously when certain people get to a certain age, our bodies are going through changes. These all sorts happening with hormones and just the way our bodies are made naturally. People are unconscious to what is happening to them. So even though naturally this whole creation has been made in such a way to continue growing and growth, and a part of that is procreation. So then your body's made to then start to seek a mate. And what often happens is, because we don't often have any spiritual training or anything, so we don't realize what's happening to us, so then we start to get into relationships. Instead of understanding what is going on with us and how we can then redirect that energy and raise our consciousness so that we come to understand that actually I understand what's happening to my mind and body, but I can override that for now because I'm not potentially ready for that step or whatever. So sometimes it's about understanding as well. So like, because this is about spirituality or faith and religion, it's about understanding what's happening to us and how these things with certain practices through like prayer, recitation, meditation, we can become more conscious of this. So then it comes down to, where do you want to direct your general energy in life? Yeah. What do you want your focus to become? The way, again, Guru Nanak's wisdom is saying that you want to train your mind before you get to that point of marriage, of starting to see everybody through that divine lens, to be able to see each other as brothers and sisters, and then you to develop to that point of when you're more ready at appropriate time in your life where you want to engage in marriage. So that's the perspective from faith. Because
you want to marry this person, so you want to, you know...
Oh, come on, Benji, it's not always the reason, is it? People get into relationships. Let's be a bit real now.
But it's all about, you know, if you're going to marry this person, you want to see if you're compatible as well. Yeah, so I guess, you know, I can understand where that question's come from. Yeah. Can you still follow a religion if you are from the LGBTQ plus community?
However somebody identifies does not stop them from creating a connection to that divine. Because for me, in the way I interpret religion, is for us to raise our consciousness, live in a righteous way, live from a place of these divine qualities, from a place of love, from a place of compassion, from a place of forgiveness. And these are the qualities that we want to find within ourselves through religious practices. So religion is about creating this connection to that divine and possessing these qualities and living by these qualities within us. So why should it matter how somebody is identifying for them not possessing and finding, going on a journey to finding these qualities within themselves and engaging in a connection to that divine?
Does religion cause war?
There's many factors to why war can exist within this world. For certain people, even though religion is meant to help us to go beyond our false layers of identification and for us to find a much deeper self within ourselves. And that deeper true self is love. But certain people can still get caught on a very outer, shallow end of religion, which then causes them, because of their way of looking at things and interpretation of things, can start to cause conflict, because then it's one identity of how one person identifies and how they believe things should be, and then that starts to cause conflict. But that can only happen when the essence has been missed. And that's why, again, if we look at what Guru Nanak says, Guru Nanak is saying the essence is to find that mother within you. And the mother that Guru Nanak's talking about is compassion. And compassion means when you see suffering in the world, there's a wish within you for that world, for that person to be free from that suffering. And if that's where religion was taking us, there can never be war. But because that's been missed and people are so fixed on certain beliefs, and because now they don't agree based on beliefs, which may not even be reality, because a belief could be true, it might not be true. Just because somebody believes in something doesn't make it reality. And just because if somebody doesn't believe in something doesn't not make it reality. So certain people's beliefs can cause conflict if the essence of faith gets missed.
A follow-on question for that was that if you do think religion causes war, then should we ban religion?
No, even if we look at the world today and what is it that religions generally provide us? They provide us what? Even if we look at now something like the NHS or anything, if we look at well-being steps, is basically what most religions have, which is a community. Yeah. So most people feel disconnected to each other, becoming lonely, because they don't have a community that support each other.
Bajri, thank you so much for coming along today.